Born on October 15, 1989, in Watford, England, Anthony Joshua's journey to becoming one of the most famous names in boxing wasn't exactly a straight line. His full name is Anthony Joshua, but he is also known by his given names of Chris and Anthony Olufawemi Olas, a nod to his Nigerian heritage. From the beginning, it was clear that Joshua was destined to be something special. Raised with an undeniably massive set of teeth that became iconic in their own right, he grew up in Watford, a suburban area outside of London. His childhood was marked by an athletic passion, especially in football and athletics. Anthony was known for being highly competitive, excelling in these areas throughout his school years, and it seemed as though he was destined to make it in sports. But it wasn't always clear that he would be a boxer. Joshua attended King's Langley Secondary School, where he was deeply involved in various sports, especially football. He had all the traits of a budding sports star: strength, speed, and a competitive fire that drove him to push past his limits. He was a talented footballer and an athlete who demonstrated promise from a young age. However, at the age of 14, Joshua made a decision that would change his life forever. He decided to visit a local boxing gym. This was the first time he encountered the sport seriously. But ironically, he quickly realized that boxing might not be his calling at that point. However, life outside of school and sports was taking a darker turn for Joshua. He found himself hanging out with the wrong crowd, getting involved in activities that were dangerous and unproductive. His lifestyle was gradually becoming more rebellious, and his antics outside of school started to become increasingly problematic. It wasn't long before his run-ins with the law escalated. In 2007, at the age of 18, Joshua was arrested for fighting. His arrest made headlines in his hometown of Watford, where he had become something of a local troublemaker. His actions led to a year-long ban from Watford, a punishment that might have seemed harsh to outsiders. But to anyone familiar with Watford, it probably wasn't the worst punishment he could have received. With his freedom hanging in the balance, Joshua made a pivotal decision. He realized that the path he was on could easily lead to his downfall. He decided to hit the gym and bulk up, preparing himself physically in case he needed to defend himself in prison. But his story didn't end there. After narrowly avoiding a prison sentence, Joshua made a bold move and relocated to London. It was in the capital where his life truly began to change. His cousin, seeing the potential in him, encouraged Joshua to give boxing another try. That's when he walked through the doors of Finchley Amateur Boxing Club, and everything clicked. It was here, in this unassuming gym, that Joshua discovered a new passion. Boxing was no longer just a pastime, but the beginning of his journey to greatness. The combination of boxing training and intense bodybuilding transformed Joshua from a street fighter into a skilled athlete with a level of focus and discipline he had never experienced before. His commitment to his training turned him into a physical specimen. By 2008, Joshua had already begun competing in amateur boxing, and it wasn't long before he was racking up an impressive string of victories. His rise through the amateur ranks was nothing short of meteoric. He began winning various titles and gained a reputation for his power and skill in the ring. One of his major accomplishments came in 2010 when he won the ABA, Amateur Boxing Association, title. The following year, in 2011, he earned a silver medal at the World Championship, cementing his status as one of the top amateur boxers in the world. His work ethic, determination, and relentless drive were paying off. But as with any rise to the top, Joshua's journey wasn't without its setbacks. In 2012, while training with the Great Britain GB team for the Olympics, Joshua found himself once again in trouble with the law. This time, he was pulled over by police, who discovered that he had 9 ounces of marijuana in his possession. He was charged with possession, which could have had severe consequences for his boxing career. Fortunately, Joshua received a relatively light sentence. 100 hours of community service, and a 12-month community order. But this event was a wake-up call for him. He realized how close he had come to losing everything. Joshua knew that his slip-up was a significant blow to his career, but he also recognized his good fortune in escaping a more severe punishment. From that point forward, he made a vow to never again get involved in the underworld of crime. However, there was a temporary setback as the GB team removed him from the squad, and it seemed as though his Olympic dreams were shattered. After serving his sentence and working hard to get back on track, the GB team reconsidered their decision and invited Joshua back into the fold. He was back on the Olympic team, and nothing could stop him now. His Olympic journey was marked by victory after victory, with Joshua rising to the occasion and advancing through the rounds. His most significant challenge came in the final, where he faced off against the Italian boxer Roberto Camarelli. It was an intense match, and Joshua found himself trailing early on. However, in typical Joshua fashion, he didn't give up. As the fight went on, Joshua's skill and determination shone through, and he started to turn the fight in his favor. The commentators were on edge, feeling that the fight was going in favor of the Italian. But in a dramatic turn of events, Joshua won the match. The decision was met with excitement and jubilation, but some wondered if the large contingent of British fans in the arena had influenced the result. Regardless, Joshua had done it. He had won the Olympic gold medal, and the world took notice. He had reached the pinnacle of amateur boxing. By 2013, Joshua had achieved everything he could in the amateur ranks, and it was time for him to move on to the professional level. At this time, the British boxing scene was experiencing a bit of a slump. Promoters like Frank Warren had lost their edge, and other figures in the industry were struggling. Enter Eddie Hearn, a young, charismatic promoter who was ready to take the boxing world by storm. Hearn quickly recognized Joshua's potential and signed him to Matchroom Boxing. Joshua's debut in the professional ranks was nothing short of spectacular. His knockout streak was relentless, and he quickly made a name for himself as a destructive force in the ring. It was clear that Joshua wasn't just another boxer. He was a phenomenon. Joshua's first world title shot came in 2016 when he faced off against Charles Martin. Martin, who held the IBF heavyweight title, was considered a formidable opponent, but Joshua was a man on a mission. In just 16 professional fights, Joshua became a world champion, a feat that very few boxers have achieved. With a combination of power, technique, and athleticism, Joshua proved himself to be a force to be reckoned with. His confidence in the ring was undeniable, and his brand began to grow. Sponsorship deals flooded in, and Joshua became a household name. But the real defining moment in Joshua's career came in 2017 when he faced the legendary Wladimir Klitschko for the IBF, WBA, and IBO titles. This was the fight that everyone had been waiting for. Klitschko, a seasoned champion with years of experience, was no easy opponent. The fight was a war, with both men giving it their all. Klitschko knocked Joshua down in the 6th round, but Joshua got back up and fought back with even more determination. In the 11th round, Joshua delivered an uppercut that sent Klitschko to the canvas, and the referee stopped the fight. It was one of the most iconic moments in heavyweight boxing history. Joshua had done it. He was now a 3-belt world champion, and the boxing world was at his feet. From there, Joshua's career continued to soar, and he became one of the biggest stars in the sport. However, the most anticipated fight of his career came against Deontay Wilder, the undefeated WBC champion. This fight had been building for years, with fans eagerly anticipating a showdown between the two giants. But despite negotiations, the fight never happened. Instead, Joshua took care of mandatory defenses and continued to rack up victories. including wins against fighters like Joseph Parker and Alexander Povetkin. In 2019, Joshua's world came crashing down when he suffered a shocking loss to Andy Ruiz Jr. in Madison Square Garden. Ruiz, who was seen as an underdog, shocked the world by knocking Joshua down multiple times and eventually winning by technical knockout. If you like this video, please subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos.